Hey guys, Thomas Ray here from Audio Unity Group, and today I'm going to talk to you about reference tracks. When to use them, how to get them, and the mistakes that people do while using them. The reference tracks are the tracks that we use during mixing or mastering, where we can compare our production, our mix, our master with someone else's mix or master. This is where we could compare both of them and see where we're missing. So this is what we're going to talk about. When to use reference tracks. So when I do my mastering, I only use reference tracks at the end of the process. I'm not referencing the tracks in the middle of the mastering process or at the beginning of the mastering process. I only use it at the very end when I'm finishing, when the limiters are on, at the very last step, just to compare my master with the reference track that I'm using. This is because I don't want to be affected by someone else's sound. I want to create my own sound, my own flavor. It's just at the end of it, once I know my master is done, I just want to make sure that the bass is tight and the rest of the master sits right. How to use reference tracks? Well, I use them mostly to compare the bass. Right? I want to make sure that the new master I'm doing has a lot of meat in it, has a low end. And when I'm comparing it to a reference track that I know that has those qualities, I can be sure that I'm going to achieve the similar bass level. Another thing why I'm using the reference tracks are the vocals. You know, I want to make sure that the vocals are loud enough in comparison to the rest of the instruments, and I want to make sure they're on a similar level when it comes to loudness. How do you get reference tracks? Well, you can rip the CD, okay, or you can go to Bandcamp and buy the WAV file of the track that you really like, and then just use it. Now, make sure that you actually listen to the track a lot of times. You know, make sure you're super familiar with your reference track. Listen on a different set of speakers, on the headphones, you know, in the car, just to make sure you know that track really, really well. There are a couple of mistakes that I see when people using the reference tracks. The main one is the quality of the reference track. Now, I don't mean the composition or the quality of the singer or the guitars, whatever. I'm talking about the high fidelity. Now, you cannot use MP3 as your reference track simply because MP3 file will not have as much quality, the high fidelity within the file for you to compare it with your WAV file that you're working on during your mastering or mixing. You know, you have to get the WAV file or the FLAC file of that song. Another thing is using the stream service as your reference track. Once again, the streaming services mostly they use compressed file. You know, you cannot use compressed file as your reference track. Another mistake that I see is comparing the spectrum analyzer, the visual spectrum analyzer of both of the tracks of your master and the reference track, and they're just chasing those frequencies based on the graphic display. Now, each track is different. You know, there is a different bass line, there is different bass used in the track. There are different kinds of vocals, male, female, all that kinds of stuff. You cannot chase the graphs, you know, so stop doing that. If you do that, don't do that, and just use your ears. Another thing worth mentioning is using reference tracks in the mix. I only talk about using the reference tracks within the mastering session, but what you do when you're mixing, how do you use your reference track when you mix? Well, it's not actually that easy though, because you shouldn't really be comparing your mix with the commercial released track because it's mastered. You know, you shouldn't compare your mix with the mastered track. I would probably suggest to ask your friend or someone that you know that you really admire the music, you know the mix was good, ask them for the mixed version of their song. Or even though if you have the mix that you did before and you're really happy, once it was mastered, you were really happy with the mix, use that mix as your reference track. Okay guys, I hope that was helpful. If you haven't subscribed, please do so. If you've got any comments, leave the comments below. I'll read all of them, I'll reply to all of them. I'll really appreciate if you have your input on the video that I made. Now, if you want to learn more about mastering, I actually got an online course where I teach everything that I know about mastering. It's basically a blueprint of how to get from nothing to great sounding master. The whole course is based on the free plugins, so you don't have to have any of the expensive plugins to actually start mastering. The link's down below. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.